Here's the tea on the Chinese Grand Prix. All right, so the race started with 5 cars already out of the race. 5 cars didn't even make it to the grid. So first of all, there were the 2 McLarens who were having electrical issues, and so their cars didn't even line up. They were supposed to be in 5 and 6. But then the Williams car, Alex Albon's Williams, the Audi had mechanical issues the last minute. So in our starting grid, we had Kimi Antonelli in first place, sitting on pole, youngest person ever to sit on a pole in a Formula One race, and now the second youngest person to ever win a Formula One race, next to Max Verstappen. Then we had Russell in second, and Hamilton in third, and Leclerc in fourth. Then there was this big gap where the McLaren should have been in 5 and 6. Then comes Gasly in 7 and Max in 8. So the lights go out, and then they go out again, right? Because you have that long start period, and the cars take off, and the Ferraris kick into gear. Lewis zoomed up ahead at Kimi, and then Leclerc got himself in between Kimi and George. So they go around like this, kind of scrapping for the first lap, and then by the second lap, Kimi had taken the lead again, and George was able to get himself back. So then it went back to being Mercedes 1-2, Ferrari 3-4. Meanwhile, in the back of the field, the Cadillacs, who did both finish the race, had a little bit of a collision in the beginning. They both finished at the end, but they made it through the whole race. Unlike some of the other cars, Stroll went out by lap 10, and eventually Alonso retired as well, somewhere around lap 37, I think it was. So when Stroll goes out at lap 10, we have a virtual safety car, and almost everybody pits except for Ocon and Colapinto. When the virtual safety car ends, everybody takes off, and the Ferraris zip themselves up in between Kimi and George. So it stays this way for a little bit of a while, but then what happens is, in between the two of them, Ferrari starts scrapping back and forth, and they did this for a good portion of the race, and it probably was the most entertaining thing about the race. By lap 24, because these two guys are going back and forth and kind of losing power, Russell ends up getting himself back in second, and we end up back with Mercedes 1-2, Ferrari 3-4, with Lewis and Charles kind of having this little battle. I'm watching this thinking, oh my God, it's like two brothers fighting it out over a toy or trying to get dad's attention, because they're not at this point fighting for a win. They're not going to win. They're just basically fighting for that third spot on the podium, and really more just like street credit. Charles gets on the radio to Brian and just says how much fun he's having battling with Lewis, and at the end, Lewis says to David Coulthard how this was the most fun possibly that he's ever had in an F1 race, going back and forth with Charles. Meanwhile, in the midfield, Behrman was the star of the show. We watched him just barely miss a collision with Hajar, and by lap 22, he was in 5th place, which is where he ended the race. Remember way back when I said there was a virtual safety car that Ocon did not pit at that time. He chose to pit much later on. In lap 34, he goes in, but as he's coming out, he has contact with Colapinto, and the two of them both spin out, but then make it back onto the racetrack, and later on we find out that Ocon ended up with a 10-point penalty for that, which ended up sinking him all the way down between Perez and Bottas. At lap 35, Alonso's retiring his car, and just as we see Max start to fall down in the numbers, and then Max retired his car as well. At the end of the day, we only had 15 cars actually finish the race. So now with both McLarens out and one of the Red Bulls, the top 4 teams, only 2 of them are actually in the race. So that gives us an opportunity for the midfield teams to make some points here. So we saw some good things happening for Gasly, for Behrman, for Jar, and Liam. So at the end of the race, the big story is Kimi Antonelli, second youngest driver to win a Formula One race, Verstappen being youngest ever, and the first Italian to win a race in 20 years. Also really exciting to see Lewis Hamilton back on the podium. He was just so happy, and it was really nice to see it. And he was super happy for Kimi as well. But one of the funniest moments, they get into the cool down room, right? And they're kind of all just chit-chatting, and all of a sudden the screen comes on, and they all just stop, and they're staring at the screen to watch the beginning of the race replay. But Lewis turns around and he's like checking out the furniture. He's like, wow, this is even nicer than the one that was in the press conference. We got to see all of the congratulatory messages to Kimi. We got to see Toto come on and say how great he did, and we got to see him with his dad. And then we get to see him up on the podium, and they go to call his name, and they didn't say his name. They said Kimi Räikkönen. What the F is that? That guy should be fired. Kimi Räikkönen, like it just kind of, I don't know, ruined that moment, but also made it special in another weird way as well. So that, my friends, was the highlights of the 2026 Shanghai Chinese Grand Prix, and here are the current driver standings and constructor standings. I will see you soon for the Japanese Grand Prix, which is now no one's home race because Yuki's no longer driving with us anymore. But we're going to make some sushi here in my house because, once again, we will not be in Japan. So, second best thing.